Good morning, 7 East. So, hello, people. Happy Wednesday. It is the middle of the week. Episode 046 of Free Lepre Radio. I can't believe we're already approaching 50, and we're going to hit over 50 by the time this year's over. We're on the air, and today, June 10th. Can't believe June is already 1/3 over after today. But what we have on our agenda is the daily countdown. And then second, I'm going to basically not do the assignment, but I'm going to read the material for the assignment and comment on it, which should be helpful for you if you're doing the assignment while listening. And that assignment is on Lincoln's second inaugural address assignment. 13 is the number of the day because there are 13 days of school remaining. Lucky 13. Although I have a feeling it might be less than that. Hopefully we'll find out shortly. With it being Wednesday, just want to go over the remainder of the week. The 1864-1865 assignment is due today, 8:30. This assignment that's assigned now is going to be due Friday. And I'm posting Monday's assignment early on Friday because I think some of you might want to get a head start. There's a reading involved, and then the other assignment for the next week also has a bit of more writing to it, so I want to allow you time to space it out, so if you have nothing to do over the weekend, you can get a head start on that assignment. And I'm going to try to do another Quizlet Live. It did not go very well last time. It's technically still Quizlet Live 2, because that was never played. So join us. Actually, I'm not sure if we'll be able to do it at 1 o'clock. We'll probably do it like at 11 or something. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. No, we will meet today, but the new assignment, so hopefully you find this useful. Lincoln's second inaugural address. So, we know Lincoln wins re-election in 1864 against McClellan, the general he fired, who then ran against his old boss and lost. And even if you're re-elected, you still have an inauguration as president. So the inauguration, as we should know, is when the president, usually in front of the U.S. Capitol, takes the oath of office again to kind of be the introduction to their second term, and they give a speech, and that speech is usually supposed to outline kind of what they see being part of their agenda going forward. And here in this photograph, we have Abraham Lincoln. He's not wearing his hat, but you could see him kind of right in the center, and there's a huge crowd around him, and this is given on March 4th, 1865. Now, today the inauguration is usually done in January, but back then it was March. Things did not move as quickly as they do today, so the president had to wait till almost the spring to officially take office, or in this case, re-inaugurate himself a second time. And then Lincoln's inaugural address, the second one, is very different than what people might expect. At this point, the Civil War is about to be over. Lee is going to surrender in about a month. But at this point, people pretty much know the North is going to win. And now the question is, what's going to happen after? How is the U.S. government, the Union, going to treat the southern states that left? There was a lot of suffering. More Northerners died, at least in terms of soldiers, than Southerners. There's an attitude of many people in the North who want to say, look, the South, they're traitors, we should punish them and make sure they never recover from this. Lincoln does not want to do that. And that's the most important thing we should know when going into looking at his second inaugural address. So I'm going to X out of my presentation, and I'm going to go to the second inaugural address right here. I'm going to increase the font, and I'm going to read it out loud and comment as I go. And my commentary and reading might help you answer the questions. So, excerpts from Lincoln's second inaugural address, Washington, D.C., March 4th, 1865. So this is a, what do we call it? A speech. So it's a speech. Remember, this is given in public. I just showed you the picture. So it's not something that's a private letter. He's telling this to the whole world, to the nation. And because they're excerpts, there's parts that are broken up. I didn't want to include the whole thing because it's too long, but I included the most important parts. So President Lincoln begins. On the occasion corresponding to this 4 years ago. Pause. He's basically saying, on this same occasion of my inauguration when I first won the election back in 1860. All thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. Pause. So remember, at this point, secession has already started. South Carolina already left. And he's talking about how the people knew a civil war was going to happen. All dreaded it. All sought to avert or avoid it. While the inaugural address was being delivered from this place, devoted altogether to saving the Union without war, insurgent or rebellious agents were in the city, Washington, D.C., seeking to destroy it without war, seeking to dissolve or separate the Union, and divide effects by negotiation. Pause. So Lincoln is saying here that while I was giving my speech 4 years ago, there were people in this very city trying to tear the country apart. Both parties disliked war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive. He's talking about the, in most cases, the Democratic Party, which had control of most of the southern states. And the other would accept war, meaning the Republican Party, rather than let it perish or die. And then the war came. So he's saying that like both sides here, North and South, they didn't want a war, but one side, the southern side, was willing to go ahead and fight this war in order to secede and maintain slavery. And then the war came, he says. You could say that in the parties, he's talking about political parties, but I think in this case, even though there's some overlap, I don't think he's referring to the political parties in this sense. I think he's just talking about the different sides. Now, while most of the southern states were part of the Democratic Party back then, there were Democrats who were not in favor of secession, like Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's vice president. So let's see this more in terms of the parties being North versus South, slave versus free. And the war came. So now I'm going to the second paragraph. Slavery constituted or made up a peculiar and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. To strengthen, perpetuate, which means to continue, and extend this interest, slavery, was the object or goal for which the rebels or insurgents would rend, tear apart the Union, even by war. Pause. So Lincoln is making the case that slavery was really the issue here, and that in order to preserve slavery, there were people in the country willing to rip the country apart by war to make sure slavery survived, by any means necessary. While the government claimed no right to do more than to restrict the territorial enlargement of it. Pause. So Lincoln's saying, look, we didn't say we were going to even abolish slavery. What we said is we're not going to allow it to spread to new territories. That's all the government claimed the right to do at that point. Constitutional amendment is an issue that can come later. Neither party expected for the war the magnitude, meaning the size, or the duration, the length, which it has already attained. So he's saying no one expected the war to be this bad and this long. It's still going on. He's speaking this and writing this. Each looked for an easier triumph or an easy win, and a result less fundamental and astounding. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes or asks for his aid, meaning God's aid, against the other. So he's saying that, look, we're in one country, we kind of have shared religious beliefs, and then at the same time we're at each other's throats. It may seem strange that any men should dare ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces. So that's a phrase that he's basically saying, it seems weird that people who own slaves, who take what other people have worked for, are asking for God's help in their whole cause. So he's kind of taking a swipe at the southern slaveholders. But then he follows it up by saying, but let us judge not, that we not be judged. The prayers of both could not be answered, and that of neither has been answered fully. So he's saying both sides hope for success, both sides prayed that they would be on the winning side, but he's saying the prayers have not been answered on either side, so while it looks like the North is going to win, they're not going to win the way they wanted to. It's going to be at a huge cost, and that's not what anyone ever wanted. So that's what he means when he says the prayers have not been answered fully. And he continues, with malice, meaning hatred toward none, with charity or love for all, with firmness in the right, meaning that we're on the right side of things, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, meaning let's strive to finish this war, to bind up or heal the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne battle, meaning those who have fought, the veterans, and for the widow and his orphan, meaning those who are left behind if the soldier dies, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. So Lincoln, he's not giving a speech that says we are going to get revenge on the South and they're going to regret what they ever did. Sure, they're going to regret it, but he's saying when this war is over, it's not going to be about hatred anymore. It has to be about charity for all, malice toward none. We're going to be one country again. We need to act like it. We need to care for those who have been suffering from this. There are people on both sides who have had fathers, brothers, sons taken from them, wives, daughters as well. Civilians were also killed in this war. And it's time for the nation to finally come together and start to heal. Lincoln's message is very hopeful. If you're a Southerner and you're kind of scared of what's going to happen, at least from this speech, Lincoln is kind of giving the impression that you don't have to be afraid of what's coming after the war. I'm going to treat you guys kindly. Don't worry. Even though we're on the winning side, we're not going to rub your faces in it. We're not going to get revenge. It's about bringing the country back together. And that is the message of his second inaugural address. He's trying to bring the country back together as amicably and as peacefully as possible. So hopefully this was useful for you, just going through this and the commentary. Feel free to rewind and also go back up to the top and read to make sure that you're able to get all the details. The questions, some of them are basic, some of them are more in-depth. So hopefully the commentary will help with that. But that is the only thing I have today for us to do on Free Lepre Radio. So I'm going to sign off, and I'll talk to you guys later.